I didn't even know what the word incel meant until Joker was released. Um, Now I do. And now let's talk about the movie first. Um, Joker was hailed as a masterpiece when it came out. And the discussion of that started very early on, I remember. I remember hearing, because when I heard, oh, they're going to make a Joker movie, I thought, oh, that's ridiculous. Why? It sounded to me like when they did Venom. Why would you do a major supervillain whose origin story is tied with the hero and not include the hero? And then the rumblings started. Like, this is not a superhero movie. This is not a comic book movie. This is a dark, R-rated, intense psychological drama. And when I started hearing that, I started getting interested. This is, very much a riff on the Scorsese movies of the 70s and early 80s. And to the point where Scorsese was actually involved at one point as a producer, which again, that piqued my interest. Like, what? Scorsese is producing Joker? Um, it's a good movie. I mean, it's a good movie. Would I say it's a great movie? I think I am just shy of calling it a great movie. I saw it in the theater. I enjoyed it. I've now had it on DVD for what, 7, 8 weeks, and I have yet to watch it again. It's an intense movie. It's a movie you got to be in the mood to watch. It's not something where you're just like, let's pop a movie in and have movie night. What do we watch? Joker. No. That's bad choice. You got to be in the mood to watch this thing. Same that you'd have to be in the mood to watch Taxi Driver. Now, Joker is not Taxi Driver. A lot of, I think, younger people want to describe it as such, that it is an equivalent. I don't think that it is. Taxi Driver is much more subtle and, I mean, which is fair enough. I mean, Joker is Joker. Joker is, the guy's, the whole thing is building to him as a clown. In some ways, you really have to just completely forget Batman. Forget Batman. Batman in this movie is, it's his before his parents are murdered. He's still a little boy. You kind of just have to forget him, because really it doesn't make sense if you're like, someday Joaquin Phoenix is going to be like, have an amusement park as a lair, and be squirting acid out of a lapel, and Harley Quinn will be there, and then Batman comes swooping in. That really doesn't fit this world at all. Not to mention the fact that Joaquin Phoenix, by the time that Batman would be in his like 60s. So you got to forget about Batman, and that's okay. I like that when they take these chances. I liked what Nolan did with the Batman mythology, where you could not put Christian Bale in Justice League. It wouldn't have worked. You can't have that Batman live in a world with Superman. It just doesn't work. You can't have this Joker really live in a world with Batman. if you do, Batman is sort of this, it would be a much more grounded vigilante. He would be more probably Punisher style. Um, and I mean, there's a lot of the arguments of, is this the real Joker? Is this the guy that inspired the Joker? Is this all a fantasy inside of this character's head, and none of it actually happens? I tend to go with the narrative that it all happened. That this is the Joker, but it's an alt world, Joker. It's another dimension. It's another, the DC universe has enough of them. So yeah, it's a good movie. I mean, the plot, a downtrodden guy stands up for himself in the most horrendous possible way. Now, as I said, I didn't know what the term incel meant prior to Joker's release. I found the media coverage around the movie's release disgusting. I think that there was a lot of sort of like, we don't want this movie. Meaning sort of Hollywood people, and people who are in that sort of bubble. We don't want this movie. Tisk, tisk, tut, tut. We don't want this kind of movie. It's not, we don't want to hear what white men, how they suffer and how whatever problems they have. They're all incels if they're complaining, and so we don't want to hear it. We shouldn't give these people a platform. And let's shut the conversation down before it even begins. Ban this movie. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The movie, and I think people agree with me, the movie made $1 billion. An R-rated psychological drama made $1 billion. That to me suggests that people do want this kind of movie, because you don't make $1 billion by everybody going once. People went back and back and back. There wasn't a single shooting. And this is my theory as to why. I have talked before about the fact that I don't like the term social justice warrior. I don't like it. The second somebody uses that term, I tune out. And it's not that the type of people that they're talking about don't exist. I think they do. I talked about that my Rambo Last Blood video, that those people do exist, and they get worked up about, oh, it's racist to portray Mexican drug cartels as bad, or it's toxic masculinity to portray Rambo at all, even though that's kind of the point of the character. Joker does not portray the character as a good person or a good guy. What it does is it gives people in his position a chance to have their stories told. For the most part, now, anybody who uses violence, I don't agree with them. Anybody. But I don't like this term incel for the same reason I don't like the term social justice warrior. Because it's name calling. Because it's pointing a finger at somebody and calling them a name. And that doesn't solve any problems. It doesn't fix anything to say, you're an incel because you're a white male and you're complaining about women or about how you're not being listened to. And so because that's what I label you, we're going to shut down the conversation. We don't want to hear from you at all. You know what happens when you do that? when you shut the conversation down, when you won't let somebody's voice be heard, they will find a way to have their voice be heard. And that's not what anybody wants. Because there are people on that, in that category, who probably fit the narrative of what incel means. Some bitter, angry men who for whatever reason have a hard time meeting a woman, and they just go straight into anger and, you know, calling names and being sexist and misogynist. I think, though, at least when I was coming up, the term incel could have applied to just about any guy that I knew between the ages of like 16 and 23, who just were like trying to figure out dating and girls, and were confused about it, and like, you know, like, what do they want? What do they want? I think that's pretty normal. And I think, again, name calling doesn't fix anything. And if anything, the character in Joker is not angry and bitter about not having a girlfriend. He's mentally ill. These are stories we still need to hear. We still need to hear these stories. We need to hear why people are suffering for whatever reason. And if you don't agree with the movie, don't go see the movie. But don't tell people that they can't see the movie. Don't tell people that, you know, don't listen to this this guy over here. Like I said, the $1 billion that this movie made proves that there are people who either can relate to the character, or who know somebody, a son, a cousin, an uncle, whatever, who maybe suffers from something like this. Maybe they suffer from some form of mental illness. Telling these stories, when you get things like, I remember when The Irishman came out, do we really need any more stories about old white guys? Yes, we do. We still do. That doesn't mean that there isn't room for stories with everybody in them. With like something like Black Panther can exist in the same world as something like The Irishman or The Joker, and exist comfortably and happily. Calling people names doesn't solve problems. Listening to them solves problems. Debating them solves problems. Putting an arm around them solves problems. Saying, you know, to somebody who you consider an incel, saying, I'm really sorry that you're struggling right now. I'm really sorry that this is a situation that you're in. And giving them advice, giving them whatever, to kind of make them feel like they're not alone. Because I think that's what a lot of these guys feel, is that they're alone. And that nobody's listening to them. And this is where, again, it's just, for me, the movie thing, I want to tune it out. I don't want to listen anymore. You know, SJWs versus incels. Nothing is accomplished. Nothing is accomplished by it. And it just makes movies not fun. It makes them not fun to go to, makes them not fun to watch, and it definitely makes them not fun to discuss. This is a review of The Joker. This should be me sitting here going, you know, spending most of my time talking about how awesome Joaquin Phoenix was, how surprising the direction by Todd Phillips is, how good Zazie Beetz is in the movie, or you know, the complex ideas of, like, you know, wealth and power, and the you know, 1% versus the 99%, and all that stuff, about how the movie's not perfect, which it's not. But I'll tell you this, for I will forgive the issues that it has, which I don't think there's like major issues. I think there's a few things where it gets a little sloppy at times or the message gets a little muddled. But I will forgive it because it has a message, because it is trying to say something. And in a world where here's Fast and the Furious 9, here's, how do we keep pumping out Transformers movies that well after everybody doesn't want to see them anymore. For a movie to take that chance, to have a smaller budget, to tackle real issues, for a movie to do that, I give it all the credit in the world. This is a movie people should see. Again, be prepared for it. It is a dark ride, but it's worth it. 4 out of 5 stars. Joaquin deserved that Oscar, but the movie did not deserve Best Picture. I haven't seen Parasite, but just going by some of the other movies in that category that I've seen, I would have given it to The Irishman. But here's the thing. The Oscars don't matter. And people who got upset that Joker lost, you are exacerbating the problem of how people perceive you. Okay? Everybody calm down and maybe have a discussion about these things instead of losing your shit.